Hello, role-playing people, and for a while now I've been hearing more and more players and storytellers saying they would like to run a more political chronicle, but they don't really know how to do politics. They don't understand how to include and portray this aspect of the game. So let's have a look at how hierarchies and politics work in games such as Vampire and Demon. The first thing to mention, and this is something I've heard other World of Darkness channels mention as well, is that for the most part, Vampire Society, and by this we mostly mean the Camarilla, works like the Italian Mafia. It has similar rules and similar hierarchies. I won't insist on this aspect too much because it's already covered by other channels, like I said, and you can easily find sources of research and inspiration for this. What I'm more interested in, and this is the second thing to mention, is the idea of feudalism and neo-feudalism, because this is going to help out with Dark Ages games and Demon the Fallen too. I'm not sure how it is in V5, but in earlier editions of VTM, it was emphasized that certain titles, such as Prince or Primogen, hold a lot of power and assets in a city, while the other kindred, save maybe for the harpies and such, compete for scraps and basically dance to their higher-ups' tune without having any real decision power. How and why does this happen? Let's start with the why. Why does anyone crave power? Well, mortals, and by extension kindred or fallen, crave power because of the benefits and privileges it affords them. Since these supernaturals are either clinically dead or exceptionally healthy, we're not talking about healthcare, but assets and resources which facilitate survival, offering risk-free access to healthy herds or pacts, and safety from both internal and external threats. If you have multiple havens and an entire network of retainers, allies, contacts, and the like, there is less chance a threat of any nature will catch you off guard. The World of Darkness is a frightening and turbulent place, so the more detectors and defenses you can put between yourself and the potential threat, the better. Having power facilitates survival. Then there's the matter of decision making. As everyone has probably noticed, in this setting, the strongest make the decisions, which of course will benefit them first and foremost. Because the strongest are, just as described, the strongest, they can always threaten their lessers with potential violence, whether we're talking physical aggression or mental forms of violence such as intimidation, coercion, blackmail, and so on. Fear will always be a very powerful motivator, and probably the most effective tool for exerting control over others. If we look at the traditions, we can see they clearly benefit those who are already in power. The Masquerade renders kindred unable to solicit help from mortal authorities or be protected by basic human rights. The second tradition, the Domain, enables the owner of said domain to do as they please on their territory without being questioned by others, provided those even higher up have their back. The third tradition enables those in power to control the population of kindred in a city and further limits their lessers, air quotes, reproductive freedom. The fourth tradition means unless your sire releases you, they have complete control over you. If they decide you're a mistake for any reason, they can destroy you without being challenged in any way. Legally, they are responsible for you, so technically you cannot legally defend yourself against their abuse since you are not recognized as an individual member of the community just yet. The fifth tradition enables those in power to monitor whoever passes through their domains and also allows immediate retaliation against those who haven't announced their presence. Finally, the sixth tradition renders those who are lower on the social hierarchy unable to defend themselves against abuse through acts of physical aggression and limits their ability to remove pieces from the Prince and Primogen's chessboard. This entire judicial system, if we can call it that, which is very similar to the one the Fallen have according to City of Angels, is put in place again to benefit those in power. And it's plain to see at the root of the lust for power, there is anxiety, there is fear. So, what happens when you play along with this, when you follow the rules and just be a part of the system? When you play along, you will toil every night for the benefit of your sire, hoping they will eventually show benevolence and reward you in some way, though they don't really have to. Maybe they want you to extend their contact network, maybe they need you to take control of a mortal business and earn them more financial resources, maybe they need you to monitor their domain or achieve a certain social position which will inevitably benefit them. When you play along, you become a reliable and predictable piece on the chessboard, maybe even a valuable piece, which doesn't cause them too much stress or worry because they know you're going to behave and stick to their plans, furthering their goals. You are under their control, and as long as you keep your head bowed and keep earning them more influence, you are as safe as can be. History shows us that power is built on influence and control, not destruction. Destruction is only the threat which creates submission through fear. Since I've just made the Vlad the Impaler episode, we can use an example from that context. The Ottoman Empire didn't want the destruction, the total annihilation of other cultures, but their obedience. Pay yearly tribute to keep me rich, give me boys I can train and integrate into my army, allow me passage through your lands to fight my enemies, and maybe even aid me in that fight with your own troops. Give me slaves that can do back-breaking labor for my benefit while I don't even break a sweat. You don't do that. We put the hurt on you. And the more you give and submit, the more you lessen the resources you keep for yourself, the more you exhaust your ability to fight back against oppression, the less resistance you can put up long term. Very vampiric, as you can see. You drain other nations' resources until they become anemic and have no choice but to serve you. And in the world of darkness, this is what happens if you play by the rules. If you don't play by the rules, the supernaturals in the city will keep their eye on you and maybe even consider you a threat to their well-being. No sire wants to be legally responsible for a difficult, rebellious child who constantly threatens to break the rules. Again, unless you are released, the consequences for your misbehavior are theirs to bear. And even if you are released and mess things up, this will reflect badly on them since you are of their line. So your sire won't have your back if your actions hit the fan, as they say, unless your misdeeds somehow serve their greater interests. Others in the city, especially those who are already enjoying sufficient privilege and safety, won't want to risk what they already have to help you destabilize the very order which already benefits them in some ways. Just look at what a difficult and slow process with a lot of going back and forth it has been for worldly powers to intervene in the conflict between Russia and Ukraine, even to the extent that they have intervened, right? I think it's a solid contemporary example. So even if you're right to rebel and fight the power, even if you are obviously oppressed, invaded, even if it's for a just cause, the elders in the city won't have your back unless they can benefit directly. And those who do have your back for idealistic reasons probably don't have a lot to lose and probably won't have the necessary resources to truly make a difference in that struggle. A poorly equipped task force of fledglings and neonates cannot take on the prince or primogen who have already had centuries to carefully create and expand their networks of influence and information, who have multiple havens around the city or plenty of retainers and allies who are up and about during the day. And because not many people have your back, there's all the chances someone hears about the fact that you're organizing some sort of a rebellion and rats you out to the authorities, right? Maybe someone even throws them a little bone as a gesture of gratitude. So the setting as written is built in such a way that playing either fanged superheroes, as they call it, or vampires with rocket launchers blowing up the prince's havens one by one just wouldn't happen. And the same goes for demon if you apply the court system of City of Angels. I mean, if explosions and gunfire is how you want to portray the ruthless politics of the world of darkness, go right ahead, everyone runs the game as they see fit. But too quick and too visible action will either show everyone that you are breaking the rules, giving those in power a very good excuse to take you out, or, because the city is populated by status-chasing supernaturals, it will mark you as suspicious, as a persona non grata, and probably invite everyone's scrutiny. Direct aggression and combat makes for very intense and dramatic scenes, for sure, but unless those scenes come as a result of very meticulous planning, intel gathering, and finding allies you can either trust or control, if you blindly fight the powers that be in your city, you will achieve nothing. They are already prepared for you. So what can you do if you want to fight back? Well, manipulate others and be willing to compromise, of course. As long as you either have or you promise them something they want and cannot obtain easily from others, they might just give you their time and attention, but don't expect the characters in the World of Darkness to do something because it's the right thing to do or because they are nice. The right thing to do was to have never been embraced and forced into an unlife of servitude to undead monsters who act as abusive parental figures, okay? The right thing to do is to create an empathetic society in which everyone has equal opportunities and the freedom to pursue their own path. The right thing to do is to respect others' rights as they respect yours and strive to live a meaningful individual life in accordance with your values and by extension, bringing value to your community. The right thing to do is to have compassion for your mortal brothers and sisters. That is nothing like the setting of World of Darkness, right? In this setting, everyone is someone else's workhorse, and you're only as good as the services you offer. Undead or infernal capitalism at its finest. You're only as good as you serve others' interests and the overall interests of the sect or faction, knowing how to play along, giving and receiving back scratches from others. They scratch your back, you scratch theirs. Even the prince rules a city with the approval and the support of his higher-ups, the inner circle, and their enforcers, the justicars. If said prince proves to be a capable leader and bends the knee to his superiors, as long as he is useful, he will have their backing. If he stops being useful or playing along, if he breaks one rule too many, they will support his competition, whether that comes in the form of a rival prince, a sneaky backstabbing primogen looking to gain more influence and take the reins, or even the local anarchs. In the vampire books, there are so many examples of anarchs being secretly encouraged by unseen Camarilla forces to challenge princely authority while slowly being seduced with promises of change and empowerment and all that idealistic stuff. So they do the hard work, removing an unworthy prince from power only to be granted the privilege and responsibility of princedom themselves. Oh, the irony. Whoever wants to take down the system finds themselves a part of it. The Camarilla, like the Roman Empire, the Ottoman Empire, whichever empire you can think of, doesn't crave the annihilation of its enemies, but their subjugation, their controlled servitude. Be afraid, consume, and serve. Everyone is to become a cog in the oppressive, savagely capitalist, neo-feudal pyramid machine. Thus, the prince of a city who seems to have all that power and the freedom to make important decisions regarding his domain is also someone's vassal. Definitely he has power, but he is also someone's vassal. And he needs to juggle things very carefully because he not only needs to appease those above him, but he also needs to pacify and keep complacent those beneath him. A prince or tyrant who is all whip and no reward won't last long because his primogen will sabotage him and back a more benevolent and malleable prince, probably a puppet prince. On the other hand, a prince who rewards too much risks externalizing and relinquishing control over too many assets he could be controlling, and that diminishes his power. Again, you're only as strong as the threats you can back up. If the primogen outgrow you in terms of resources and network, you are at their whims, which is what frequently happens to princes who fall. Prince Maxwell's city of Chicago outgrows him, and his rival Lodin finds the opportune moment, is supported by a few right people, and takes the city. Then Lodin loses control and begs his primogen for help and support during the Maldavis incident, so at that point, if he has to beg, his power is all but gone. The true shot callers are the primogen. Speaking of, as the representatives of each clan in their city, the primogen also need to hold their social position with a firm grip, but they should always listen to the collective complaints of their kin in the city, which can always be heard from the gossiping harpies in Elysium, or maybe collected by those who were tasked with doing just this, keeping their ears open and reporting back to the primogen. According to the lore, they advise the prince regarding certain matters, for sure, but they also have a responsibility to their clan, to make sure their clan isn't seen as pushovers and gradually lose their own privileges and power within a city. Clans without a primogen on the council are usually the punching bags of other clans, so this is a good thing to keep in mind when creating your city. A lot of princes will openly bully a certain clan just to show the others what happens when you become a persona non grata. And of course, they will choose to bully the weakest clan, the clan that is least likely to fight back. Who's next? The sheriff. The sheriff is, according to the definition in the V20 Companion, an enforcer of princely decree. The sheriff doesn't get to decide what's right or wrong. They simply enforce the prince's rule and work security on a citywide level. Competence is desirable, of course, and a certain level of competence is mandatory for this position, but most sheriffs are political hires, okay? They bend the knee and serve the prince's interest. They keep order in the city, discourage rebellion, keep an eye out for dissidents or external threats, and everything goes according to plan. Everything is in order. That being said, returning to our question, how can you fight back? How can you change this structure? Well, with tremendous difficulty, through very careful manipulation and carefully weighed compromise. You need to play ball until you show everyone a certain level of reliability while concealing your desire to change the current structure. You need to carefully and very diplomatically point out flaws in the current structure and how those might be improved or remedied under someone else's rule. You need to offer or at least promise something that is more valuable than what is already being offered, obtaining support from key members of the Camarilla. If you know the current prince has been keeping the local bruja on a suffocatingly tight leash, offering them very little privileges and frequently bullying them or inviting other clans to bully them, then those bruja are your potential backers. You know someone high up hasn't been playing by the rules? If you bring that to the attention of the right people, it might take him off the board, creating an opening for yourself or a vassal of yours, someone else who could be occupying that position. If you bring that to the attention of the wrong people, it might take you off the board because they already knew of that kindred's indiscretion, but they're just too valuable to the status quo of the city, so no one has the intentions to take them out at this point. Let's move on to practical points. How do you implement this stuff into a chronicle? The first thing to mention is that intrigue and politics are themes that develop slower than others, as the schemes are revealed gradually from session to session. Essentially, what you are creating is a social puzzle. in which the pieces are the intentions, assets, and desires of both player characters and non-player characters. Discovering these hidden pieces and how to use them is a long-term project, in case anyone is wondering how you can run a 3-year-long game in which the players don't get bored. Well, this is how you reveal things gradually, drop by drop. The intrigue will eventually lead to intense, explosive story moments, but until we get to that point, they're almost like background processes, right? They run in the background of other flashier, shorter stories. That being said, you can and should absolutely spice up your political chronicles with conflicts that are more direct and visible. Your Sabbat sieges, your fighting the Kuei-jin, your mystery murders, some local kindred suddenly going insane and breaking the traditions, strange occult items which will only be in the city for a limited time and must be retrieved now or never, or just running around doing whatever the protagonist's sires have them doing. These are excellent storyteller-driven events which demand immediate resolution, quests, essentially, which bring the coterie together. However, in between these intense short stories, the characters get to visit Elysium, where they can socialize, finding out more about the members of their sect in the city. They might become aware of the tensions and attitudes these members have towards one another. They can see who talks to who, how many retainers did that primogen bring with them tonight, who's the most reliable retainer of the Keeper of Elysium, and so on. This is their chance to do intel gathering. And think about it. These Elysium meetings are probably fairly short, so the amount of information a character can gather about others is limited. Maybe this session you keep your eye on the relaxed, self-assured harpy everyone wants to talk to, or one of the scourges who looks like last night was the worst night of their unlife and they walk in with this look of defeat written all over their face and posture, probably looking to drown their sorrow in the blood of an alcohol-intoxicated mortal clubgoer. Pick a target and observe or interact with them. You cannot talk to everybody in the same night. And this will show players that things are happening in the city without them being fed that information directly by the storyteller. The city is alive. It should always feel alive, even though this is clearly an illusion. The city is brought to life by the storyteller. You are shown precisely what the storyteller wants to show you. Right, but it should feel alive. The kindred or fallen inhabitants all work towards furthering their agendas in secret. So it's up to the protagonists to become aware of these events, right, to take an active interest in them and extract the information from those who can provide it. A political chronicle relies on the curiosity of the players, their desire to make the unknown known and then use that information to their advantage. And the best part about this is that it also encourages interaction between players, right? Each of them is in Elysium gathering intel in their own way, and then when they withdraw into the comfort of their collective haven or one of their individual havens, they can talk about what they learned. Did you see the way Melissa looked at David? I know that look, oh, so well. Or, I think something is wrong. The sheriff also showed up tonight and seemed tense. He usually doesn't show up to Elysium gatherings. I wonder why he was there tonight. And then the players can either investigate further by seeking out that NPC directly or waiting for the next Elysium gathering. Maybe they decide it's not worth it and turn their attention towards another target. But eventually they uncover more and more about these secret little background processes happening all around them, and then they can start making their own bids for influence and power, in whichever way they choose to do it. It is, however, essential for a political game that your NPCs are crafted in detail. You need to have information you can constantly drip feed the curious protagonists depending on what they look into. So make sure you create your relationship charts like we see in Chicago by Night. Make sure you know what each NPC owns, what they're satisfied about, what they're completely dissatisfied about, their goals, agendas, strengths, and weaknesses. Since I mentioned weaknesses, it's actually very important to pay attention to the flaws of these seemingly untouchable NPCs, right? It's good to create weaknesses in them that the player characters can exploit once they become aware of these weaknesses. This is super important, and this is why I love taking my time creating the core cast of my setting and my city long before bringing in the player characters. Obviously, this will be tailored to them as well, but there are things that absolutely should exist independently of the protagonists. So if I had to boil all this down and map out a gameplay loop for the political chronicle, here is what it would look like from the start of the chronicle. Social event, introduction and prestation in Elysium. This is when the characters first introduce themselves and the players have their very first interaction with the NPCs, probably picking up on some overall vibes, but no major information is revealed at this point. Protagonist individual scenes. Each retires to their own haven, they narrate what happens there, they interact with some retainers, or engage in some personal activities, and everyone at the table can catch a glimpse of what these characters do in their private time. Story event. Something happens. Sabbat, Kuei-jin, Sire quest, whatever it might be. And the coterie comes together and explores this particular event. This can last anywhere from 1 to 3 sessions in my case. And the event gets solved. Social event. Protagonists report their findings to whoever tasked them with the, air quotes, quest they just solved. This doesn't need to be long, it can be done in 1-2 hours of the session, and maybe they even receive a little reward. Then, downtime. The protagonists can spend XP to improve their traits and, just take it easy for a certain number of nights, engaging in whatever off-screen activities they see fit. Social event, Elysium Gathering, a good opportunity to gather intel and find out more about their fellow sect members in the city. Story event, something else happens. The coterie comes together, solves quest. Social event, report findings to, air quotes, quest giver. Then we repeat the individual scene, downtime, or Elysium social events, depending on what the players want to do. This recipe I personally use for running World of Darkness games is very malleable, and I think it's really important to alternate between those scenes in which the coterie has to do something because they were tasked by a higher up and they can't really say no in the matter, and scenes in which players, and by extension their protagonists, have complete agency and they decide what to do and how to do it. It's this beautiful dance between moments of disempowerment, which emphasize the horror aspect of the game, whether it's supernatural, social, personal, etc., and moments of empowerment, which remind the players that you are on their side. You're running this game for them precisely because you want them to have fun and to have agency and create their own interactions and scenes, telling their protagonists' stories. Rinse and repeat. Social, story, report, maybe reward, downtime. Social, story, report, maybe reward, downtime. And from one repetition of the loop to the next, the players both uncover new information about the city, interacting with NPCs they haven't interacted with before, and they solve the short story events, proving that they are capable and valuable pawns in the unseen game of chess their higher-ups play, which invites even more visibility and interaction from characters like the Primogen or even the Prince, who initially wouldn't have given 2 frozen onions about our fledgling protagonists. The protagonists need to engage in prestation and the giving and receiving of boons, definitely do not forget about boons. Ask for favors and cash in on the favors you've done others. At any point, the loop I've described can be reordered according to player choice. Maybe they want more social interaction, so you downtime till the next Elysium gathering, right? Maybe all they want to do, because it's so much fun for them, is to stay in Elysium and talk to other characters, get more intel, get the info, find out all of the hidden little intrigues. That's great. Do the Elysium gathering, downtime till the next Elysium gathering. You can go from one Elysium straight into the other, no problem. Maybe they want their individual scenes, and you can orchestrate and pursue their own stories without the need to arrange storyteller-driven story events. All good. What matters is the intrigue is always there, running in the background. The setting seems not to change at all in the grander picture, and at some point towards the conclusion of the chronicle, when the protagonists have amassed enough information, assets, connections, and they have enough social status to make a difference, they can start making their own political moves, which might actually change the setting. And this is an absolutely beautiful moment in the chronicle, when what used to be a coterie of nobodies suddenly has enough power and the confidence to blackmail a primogen, or start plotting against the prince, or allying themselves with the anarchs, or something like that, something that creates both higher risk and higher reward. The point where they can see and counter the political moves of characters who seemed untouchable. And even as they achieve their goals, maybe one of them betrays the cause and betrays the coterie. Maybe a previously unseen threat rears its ugly head, or a piece they relied on greatly just falls off the board. It's taken off the board. Oh no. You thought you solved the conflict. You thought you had everything under control, but maybe you were wrong. What happens now? So, you see, a more political chronicle isn't just about endless talking and Elysium gathering and sneaky intrigues. It's not boring at all. It doesn't exclude all of these other types of events, combat or whatever you want to have. Because in between these social moments and the revelations they bring, there's story events, there's your Sabbat raids, there's mysterious powerful artifacts like the Ankaran sarcophagus from Bloodlines, there's your anarch plots and uprisings which need to be quelled, strange bloodlines coming into the city. There's everything you want to have in your game, literally anything. Just make sure you give the players the opportunity to unravel the current web of intrigues and internal conflicts, and with that information, start making game-changing moves of their own. And the best part about these political and intrigue-based chronicles is that they are fit for and can easily star protagonists of any social ranks. VTM often has you playing fledglings and neonates precisely to create the feeling of choicelessness and disempowerment, because no one is going to boss around a primogen and send them to fetch whatever item from the dealer on the other side of town, right? Primogen don't risk their hides. They're never on the front line, and they don't do fetch quests. They're too high up on the social pyramid and have servants for that kind of work. But there's things Kindred will always do, regardless of their social status and the level of turmoil in their city, like keeping up to date with the latest gossip, intrigues, and tensions, making sure their assets are held by competent and loyal retainers who are not being influenced by their opponents, making sure they can defend themselves against the power grabs of others or external threats, keeping an eye on the acquisitions and expansions of others in the city, making sure the lower classes don't rebel, either because they've been given too much power or because they are completely dissatisfied with the current rule and have nothing to lose anymore. Hopefully you see my point. This kind of chronicle allows for so much, and it can go longer. It can just keep going. I've seen plenty of chronicles end at the point in which the protagonists become Keeper of Elysium, or sheriffs, or primogen, or princes, because those roles are usually more static, right? Because those social ranks are no longer pushed around. They don't receive quests from authority figures, because they are the authority figures. But the truth be told, as long as the player has plenty of motivation and is willing to keep playing this political game, the Chronicle can continue beautifully, though the mechanics in the previously described loop changes slightly. Something I always enjoy saying, with great power comes great responsibility. And in the cruel and unforgiving world of darkness, no matter how high up you are on the social hierarchy, you are never safe. Thank you very much for listening. Take care, have fun, and don't forget to play.